I know most people voted for top 20 worst movies of all time during my polling, but that video is going to take a lot longer than I thought. Besides, I think this video was the runner-up for the polling. Plus, it's my channel, I can do whatever the fuck I want. But today I'll be talking about appreciating what we used to hate. This is a topic I feel like we've all encountered at some point, but it's never really been talked about. At least, I haven't found a video about it. I mean, there are multiple videos talking about how we've underestimated the prequels, but that's just one of the arguments included in this video. And yeah, if you haven't guessed yet, the Star Wars prequels are going to serve as the main example. So a little background behind these films. After the original trilogy, everyone was excited to see the prequels. Same director, same composer, and even some of the same actors. A lot of people were hyped. Then The Phantom Menace was actually released, and I would have to say that majority of the people who saw the movie reacted negatively, but at the same time, majority of Star Wars fans were hyped for the next movie. But then Attack of the Clones came out, and everyone hated it. Eventually, the hype kind of died down a bit, but people were still looking forward to Episode 3. And after that movie was released, it was pretty half and half. It's often regarded as the better of the three, which isn't much of a compliment, but more Star Wars fans liked Episode 3 more than 2 and 1. All three movies were financial successes, but were overall considered negative additions to the franchise. Not to kid ourselves, these movies were labeled as absolute failures overall. Star Wars fans overall believed that the prequels couldn't even be considered in the same caliber as the original trilogy. But when 2014 came along, we got a new trailer for Star Wars 7. Most people, including myself, were excited for this movie. But after the initial release of The Force Awakens, the movie received the same feedback as Revenge of the Sith. Mixed feelings. Some people thought it was a great Star Wars movie, some people thought it was a repetition of Episode 4. But what's important to think about is that because a lot of Star Wars fans reacted positively towards this movie, it wasn't really considered a horrible film overall. Revenge of the Sith had mixed feelings, The Force Awakens had mixed feelings, but while the franchise wasn't making any significant progress, at least it wasn't taking a step back. And then The Last Jedi came out, and that's exactly where we landed. Yes, there are a few people who like this movie, but majority of Star Wars fans despise it. Star Wars fans hated The Last Jedi way more than the prequels when those movies came out. The franchise overall took a huge step back. Now, when Episode 7 was released, I've noticed that people started to warm up to the prequels just a little bit. I would even go back to old prequel videos, just clips of the Star Wars prequels, and I noticed people in the comment section saying, "This is way better than The Force Awakens, these movies are underappreciated." It was only like one or two comments, but after The Last Jedi came out, pretty much every single comment on a prequel video was just that. People saying the prequels are underappreciated and the sequels suck. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, but it is funny to me how when shittier movies come out, we go back to the older movies and then make excuses for them and act like they're better than they once were. The fanbase started to warm up to the prequels because the sequels were just that bad. Now, many people debate whether or not the sequels helped us open our eyes to the prequels, but personally, I feel like a lot of people are only saying good things about the prequels because they just want to spite the sequels. Many people did this for Game of Thrones Season 8. After the final season was received mostly negative, people went back to older TV shows with universally disliked last seasons and praised them. Most people hated the final seasons of Lost, The Sopranos, Dexter, but now suddenly they like these endings because the final season of Game of Thrones is perceived as terrible in comparison. I guarantee you when the next big popular series comes out and that show ends up having an awful final season, people will go back to Game of Thrones Season 8 and say, "You know what, it actually wasn't that bad." And I feel like this is the attitude most people have towards the Star Wars prequels. I swear, right after The Last Jedi came out, people went back to the prequels and sucked its dick. Those three movies get so much praise now, and I don't think it's really well deserved. I don't think people overreacted when The Phantom Menace came out because comparing that movie to the original trilogy, it's not even close. Phantom Menace has its moments, but it's overall a pretty bad movie. Personally, I think Attack of the Clones is an enhancement upon a Phantom Menace, but not by much. It's okay at best. And Revenge of the Sith is the only movie I would consider to be in the original trilogy caliber. Yeah, it's goofy and cheesy at some points, but it's overall a pretty solid film. So yeah, the prequels definitely have their flaws, but now they're being overlooked. I even see some people saying Jar Jar is funny now just because Rose Tico was so bad. Are you fucking kidding me? Jar Jar? The guy who butt-raped the whole galaxy because he gave power to Palpatine? Yeah, we love that character now. He's awesome. And funny too. I love his fart jokes. Like, do you guys get what I'm saying? After the releasement of The Phantom Menace, no one above the age of 10 liked this character. But now everyone wants to suck his alien dick because that pudgy Asian failed to do her job. So, yeah, in my opinion, I don't think the initial reaction towards liking the prequels was genuine. And if you do enjoy the prequels now, good for you. I personally believe that it's kind of toxic to suddenly like something just because it's better in comparison to something else. Just because something is better doesn't necessarily make it good.